President Joe Biden unveiling the details of his plan to get big companies to pay more tax. The plan's going to impact international efforts to overhaul how tech companies are actually taxed. What's actually in this plan then, Stephen?
Well, this is the detailed proposal from the US Treasury, which puts the meat on the bones of what we've been hearing over the past few days about the changes proposed in the US tax system. The goal from the American side is to raise up to $2.5 trillion in tax over the next 15 years. They're going to use that money to pay for investment in infrastructure, roads, transport, clean energy, that sort of thing. The proposal will change the top rate of corporate tax in the US. It'll increase it from 21 to 28%. There'll be a new minimum tax on US companies which are profitable but don't pay any federal taxes currently in the United States. This now 15% minimum tax will apply to the profits as they report to investors. And this is part of efforts of the US to make sure that companies aren't shifting their profits out of the United States and paying less tax in the US as a result. The other half of that global reach in this measure is this new global minimum tax. We've been talking about it earlier in the week as well, 21%. President Biden says the goal of all of this is to ensure that firms are paying their fair share of tax in the United States.
It means that companies aren't going to be able to hide their income in places like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda in tax havens. We're going to also eliminate deductions used by corporations for offshoring jobs and shifting assets overseas. They offshore the jobs, shift the assets overseas, and then don't have to pay taxes on all they make.
So, Stephen, what are the implications then for the rest of the world?
Well, for years now, there have been negotiations happening at an international level trying to figure out a new way of taxing multinational companies, and in particular, tech companies. The idea is to make sure these companies are paying taxes in countries where they're making money. Seems pretty logical. The talks at the OECD in Paris had stalled, though, under the Trump administration. Joe Biden's proposals fit quite neatly into the OECD plan, particularly this element of the global minimum tax, which is one of the two main pillars of the OECD proposal that's on the table at the moment. You need the United States on board to make this work, because a lot of the companies we're talking about are American. The other main element of the OECD plan is a sort of a redistribution of profits, which will see them reallocated for tax purposes so that countries where those companies are not currently paying a lot of tax, they will pay more tax. Now, the US has come up with their own version of this reshifting plan. There's a slight difference from the OECD version, and the OECD proposal is looking at large digital and consumer-facing businesses. The United States wants it to apply to the largest and most profitable companies across all sectors. The US says that'll be around 100 companies in all that will see their profits reallocated for tax purposes. This has been welcomed by the OECD. The official there who's been in charge of developing this plan, Pascal Santamon, telling the Financial Times the proposal was likely to raise as much revenue as their plan. So good signs there for the international front too.
It's all just proposals at this stage, isn't it, though? So what chances do they actually have of succeeding?
So most of this plan will have in the United States to pass through Congress. Of course, President Biden has said that he is open to negotiation. He said that compromise is inevitable on this. Now, the whole idea of making US companies pay more tax in the US isn't particularly groundbreaking, so we can expect there'll be some support from that. We might see some tinkering in the numbers, those 21%, 28%. Perhaps that's an area that we could see shifts in. On an international front, there are lots of countries, particularly in Europe, and France being one of them, that will welcome this effort to try and make things more sensible on an international scale. France, Italy, Spain and the UK already have this digital services tax in place. That's not made them many friends in Washington. We know there have been trade tariffs threatened over that as well. They'd be happy to see that resolved. Perhaps an indication this could happen very quickly if they get through the US. We're talking about maybe an agreement to the OECD within months. So this could be progress we see coming very quickly.